Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for another wonderful 1950s fun chat. You know, Jackie, what's so fun about how we often acquire our guests is when past fun chatters give us recommendations and say, oh, this person will have a neat story, this person will have a neat story. So that's the situation with today, this wonderful guest today.
Yes, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us again or for the first time. We're going to tell you a little bit about the fun chat quickly. And if you look up in the right-hand corner or left-hand corner, depending upon where you are, of the screen, you'll see the book, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s. And then look on the bottom and you see www.whilethewindmillwatched.com. So that is a wonderful source to find out about the book, about the authors, and news and events, and about purchasing the book. And then let you know that little book kind of spurred the 1950s fun chat, because we told about our 50s rural experience, and we have invited others to tell about their experience in the 50s, or perhaps they were born in the 50s, or they were influenced by the 50s. Anyway, we have a broad variety of
Yes.
stories to tell. So today, we're going to chat with a prolific author who has a heart for the topic of Germans from Russia. Susan Balcom was born in Fargo, North Dakota in 1956, but was raised in the Fredonia and Gackle areas. She graduated from Gackle High School, studied graphic arts at Wahpeton State School of Science, earned a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing from Dickinson State University, and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in visual arts from Bismarck State College. Sue has furthered her education by having responsibilities as an editor of a newspaper or two, a typesetter, a print layout and designer, a church communications minister, an adjunct professor of photojournalism, only to name a few. Sue has 2 children and 5 grandchildren, and she lives in Bismarck, North Dakota. So, Sue, we welcome you to this 1950s fun chat.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And here we go.
I want to be a Renaissance woman.
Yes.
In my obituary.
Okay.
They never say that about women, but I've done enough in my lifetime to be a Renaissance woman.
So okay, and we're going to hear a little bit about that as we go.
Or a lot.
Well, I don't know. So before we hear about your professional experiences, though, I would like to begin by chatting about growing up in a large family during the late 50s and early 60s. So how did being a member of a large family impact you as an adult?
You know what's really weird about that is that I thought everybody grew up like I did. I was in college before I realized that not everybody in North Dakota was a German from Russia.
Oh.
So nowadays,
you ran
when
into
families,
some Norwegians, huh? You ran into some
yes,
Norwegians?
a few of them, and some Catholics too. I didn't realize much about the Catholic German from Russia until I did a little more research on the subject. But I I love having a large family.
Okay, and how did you suppose this impacted you as an adult?
I think that the close relationships that I have with my cousins have come to fruition after I turned 70 years old. But I know that being around my grandparents and a house full of aunts and uncles, and like I think in 2015 we were close to like 50 grandchildren on just my grandmother on my mother's side of the family. And then of course I had probably half that on the other side of the family, and we couldn't all fit in a house at once, so we had to kind of like take turns. But one of the things I remember the most is that the year I was born, my grandmother insisted that my mom's side of the family got together every third weekend, every third Sunday in July, and had a family potluck picnic. And the food was amazing. Like,
Oh, I bet.
there's nothing like a good German cook. And we would go to the farm, or else we'd go to the park in Wishick. And I mean, it was just such a wonderful thing. We had no, it wasn't like people were having Christmas and giving gifts and stuff like that when we got together at the holidays. It was all about the food. So I learned how to be a really great cook because of what I saw my aunts and uncles and my grandmother and the traditional foods that they used to serve. It was such a blessing. I think my kids are missing out by not having that many cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still make a lot of those traditional German foods?
I'm pretty famous for my cooking and my bread baking, let me tell you.
Okay.
I love it.
I've taught a lot of classes, like at
No.
BSc for adult education. I would
Yeah.
teach, first we'd start out with nifla, and then it was case nifla, then it was dumplings, and then it was strudels. And if somebody completed all 4 of the classes, they got a certificate in German cuisine. So we had I'm sorry, my cat feels like it wants to be part of the interview.
That's okay.
His name is Walter.
Walter.
Welcome, Walter.
Yes.
So, Sue, how many siblings in your family?
I had 3 brothers, 2 of which were twins, and 1 sister. So there were 5 of us. And the twins were like, woohoo, man. Like, my grandpa Meidinger didn't, I think, hold any of the other grandkids, but boy, those twins were a big deal. In fact, a big deal in more ways than one, because I believe that my mother had them naturally after 3 days of labor in the Wishick Hospital. And to this day, I believe they still hold the record. They were both over 8 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my
Ouch.
word.
So they were
What
big.
a gal.
And it was a natural delivery?
Yep.
Oh, the poor woman.
I know. And she talked about that for years.
Because it was really a big deal to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Holy
So, anything else about that before we go on to a
Well, they did put it in the newspaper. Like, there was a photograph of my mom with those 2 babies in the Wishick newspaper. And everybody that sees that photo, they're like, oh my gosh, look how good she looks. But that was part of my aunts. My aunts were sharp dressers. They always had their hair done. It was really, they set a really good example for me. I never go out in public in Walmart clothes. I always dress up no matter where I go. Usually wear skirts. My grandmother wore skirts all the time. In the wintertime, skirts with pants underneath them, to go outside when it was cold. And to this day, I still do that.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
No tights for you. You just go to the slacks, huh?
Well, leggings, okay.
Yeah, leggings.
I
Leggings,
love the
okay.
advent of leggings. I know we all do, right?
Well,
I don't know that it's hit the Pfeiffer girls yet.
Oh, okay.
no. So, anyway, let's go on to something specific that happened in your family: butchering chickens. You want to talk about that?
What's really funny about that is my daughter, who is not an earthy person, she's more high maintenance than myself. They actually just butchered 70 chickens. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would give my eye teeth to go to South Dakota and help them, because we would gather up. My younger brothers were like 8 years younger than myself. So I'd be my sister and me and the 2 boys, and we would go out to the Harold Whitmire farm, because Gladys Whitmire and my mother were best of friends. They baked together on Saturdays, and then they would raise the chickens, and we would go out there, and we'd get up on top of this big hill by their house. And my mother, who ended up being a butcher for Gackle Packing Company in her later years, I watched her step on their wings, twist their necks, and chop their heads off.
Whoa.
And then she'd let them go. And my little brothers would be running down the hill screaming because these chickens were following them down the hill without their heads on.
Ah, goodness.
Did they have nightmares with that?
I don't know, but I don't think they butcher chickens.
Oh, mercy. Well, we butchering chickens was a big deal in our house too, but
Mhm.
if we didn't run down a hill,
No.
It was like a science lesson, like that's where I learned what's inside of a bird, the little
Oh,
sack
yes.
with all the stones in, and how you had to carefully cut the bile away from the liver so you wouldn't
Mhm.
contaminate it. I was
That's
really good at evisceration, even though that's not
yes.
what they called it back then.
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did you have to pick pin feathers too?
That was not a very pleasant job as far as I can remember. I think my mother was
No, is it?
meticulous about those things, but I
Yeah.
do remember the hot water bath and the
Yeah.
plucking, and then they used the torch to burn off the little
Yeah.
hairs at the very end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then afterwards, if we were really good and efficient, we would go to Edgeley and have a Dairy Queen.
Oh, that's the best. So
And that smell, that aroma stayed in your nostrils for a
Oh,
day or two, didn't it? You
yep,
couldn't get
there's
rid of it.
nothing like the smell of burning feathers.
Yeah.
did your mom save those feathers and use them in
Pillow
pillow?
making?
She did not, because I think they used goose feathers on the farm. Because I remember my grandmother saving the goose feathers.
Mhm.
So, but what she did do was she saved all the milk cartons. Remember when milk came in a wax
Yes,
paper
yes, yes. My
carton?
mom did too.
And she stuffed the bird in there, filled it with water, and made little cubes of chickens to fit
Yes,
in the
Yes,
freezer.
exactly.
yes.
It's amazing how. Okay.
Or with the geese, mom would save the wings, and then they would make the best broom for sweeping steps.
Yep.
Mhm.
But
Isn't
my
that?
mom did not like those geese because she said if they ran after you and got a bite and they twist when they bite, she did not like the geese.
Yeah,
Yes. Some
yeah.
people have had experiences with that.
Did you have raised turkeys also?
No, we did not. I don't remember if my grandparents did. If they did, it probably would have been before I was born. And because I do remember somebody talking about how they would ship them out on the train, the turkeys
Oh,
that they grew.
okay.
Now, it could have been one of the ladies that I interviewed because, boy, they had stories about stuff that they did when they were growing up.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think at
Okay.
that time with the butchering process that there was ever a concern for food safety?
No.
Yeah.
It was not such a big deal. And I spent most of my life working in local food system development, like
Okay.
for the ag department, and later on as the executive director of a small nonprofit in Medina. But back then, children were allowed to go outside and eat dirt. I
Oh,
used to eat plants that I didn't know what they were, and nothing killed us because we had all of this good gut biome. So I don't think food safety was such a big issue back then because we weren't so meticulous that we killed off all the bacteria that makes us
Mhm.
healthy. And
Mhm.
I truly believe that's a problem with today's diet.
Mhm.
it's kind of similar to when you went to a picnic or if you had a big family gathering. You never really put the potato salad away. It just stayed out.
We ate it till it was gone most of the time.
Yes.
But if
I
it took all
know.
afternoon, it took all afternoon.
That's right. And nobody died.
Yes.
No.
Oh boy.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to something a little less eviscerating. How did the relationship with a bookmobile impact your life?
Oh man, I'll tell you. I don't know if it's because I was born with such a vivid imagination or if it was because my mother read so much to me when I was growing up that I actually knew how to read before I went to kindergarten.
Mhm.
And part of me wanting to escape life
Mm.
in the
Oh,
middle of
sure.
nowhere was reading books. Like we
Mhm.
looked forward to the bookmobile coming. It was so amazing. And I went to school in Fredonia, kindergarten through fifth grade, and there was no library. And the school's library was mostly textbooks. And so I was able to get books about rocks and minerals because I love rocks. And Nancy Drew was one of my favorites. But that opened up the world to me. Like I
Mhm.
still think that I crave split pea soup because I read about split pea soup in a
Uh,
book. Or
Yes.
cream puffs. I was always after my mom to make me cream puffs because I remember a book about somebody juggling cream puffs. And I thought, I really want one.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. How fun.
Well, you're right about book reading. Reading opens the world to you, and it does make you more eh, question things and more curious. And I remember, well, I won't go on. This is your story.
Well, one of the things that I did I've done a lot of, I never was a teacher, but I volunteered in my kids' class and taught college level courses and stuff at one time. The first thing I would tell them is that it doesn't matter what they're learning from me. They have to learn to read because reading will give them the opportunity to achieve anything. If they can read, they can find enough information to go ahead and create a career if that's what they wanted to do. But that was my emphasis when I worked with students, was how important it was to know how to read.
Mm-hmm.
So Sue, that I go back then to the families, the Germans from Russia families, and I know our grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was a German from Russia, and German was spoken in the family. So our dad didn't learn English until he went to school. How how was that hard? How was German spoken in your home all the time, and then when you went to school?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And
I
how
I
did
miss that. I miss that more than anything. The sound of
Oh,
those German accents when they're
yeah.
ah,
talking.
mm-hmm.
Did your parents have a hard time assimilating into speaking English more frequently than they would have?
Well, they all spoke it at home. They all spoke it at all the family gatherings. So that
German
never
or
went
English?
away.
English?
They spoke German.
Yeah.
So I heard German a lot growing up. However, my mom never taught us how to speak German because every single person that I've talked to from that generation said the same thing about going to school, that was, I mean, you were punished for speaking German in school. It was almost to the point of abuse sometimes because some of
Mm,
these people were like traumatized by this.
Oh, oh.
mm.
Was
So
So it
is
was a
this,
difficult thing.
was it so much? Was it because of the adults who spoke German wanted so much for you to be assimilated into today that society, the English-speaking
Well, they
society?
didn't want us to have to go through what they went through in
Oh,
school.
I
So
see.
that was part of it. But I have I have to laugh at my dad because whenever we were out shopping and there would be somebody from a foreign country and they'd be speaking their language and he was just like, they got to learn English, they're living in America. And I'm like, okay, Dad,
Yeah.
how much German did you guys speak? And now, of course, when the generation of my parents is totally gone, there's only a few of my cousins that still speak German because if you don't practice it, you kind of
Mhm.
like lose it. And so that language will die out eventually, which is really kind of tragic in my mind.
Mhm.
hmm
Unless you go to Germany.
were there certain
This is a
phrases?
different vernacular. We spoke a
Right,
different
right.
German than they do over there.
Yes.
In
And
fact,
when
my
Janine took,
grandmother,
oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, my grandmother actually could tell if you were Catholic or Protestant by your German.
Oh,
That's how unique it was to
unique it
those
was.
people. And
So,
ancient, very ancient language.
so
Oh,
was that because of how they spoke over in the Ukraine then? Would the Catholics have a different, would they be a certain culture group versus the Protestants versus the
Well,
Lutherans?
trust me, you never crossed that line until probably 1965 or 70s, because it was a sin, I think.
oh yeah. To date a Catholic.
So I wasn't even familiar with that religion because, like I said, the people that I knew were all Protestant, and
Mhm.
then, of course, the one country church that my grandparents were part of, when we would go to church there, we were probably related to everybody in that building. So one year when I was in college, probably my first year of college, I'm just like, why are these people? What's up with this junk on these? Why are these people's heads all full of dirt?
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Ash Wednesday because we never did that, but we do it now. And I'll bet my mother's rolling over in her grave.
Yeah.
Were there certain German phrases? You said you miss it and you would love to still be speaking it. Were there certain German phrases that really settled into your heart and you'd like to keep speaking them?
Mostly swear words, so I don't think we can go there.
Okay.
I was practicing the title or one of the phrases in one of the books I wrote. Oh, I should have been practicing it. It's something my grandmother actually said to me once. Work makes life sweet, but it
Mm.
sounds so much better in
In
German.
German.
But
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to give it a
I
try?
would practice that.
Oh.
God.
Yeah. And it's
No,
very
because I
true.
don't want to embarrass my ancestors.
Oh. Okay.
It's very true. Work
Yeah.
does make life sweet.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good segue about going into some of your projects here. You've created projects in print and documentary form and other mediums in between. So this is a long, extended question, and you can attack it any way you want. First, A, give us a sample of each project by beginning with how the research began for each. B, struggles and joys that occurred along the way. And we have the first one, Women Behind the Plow, and then Everlasting Yeast. I'm not going to pronounce the German. And then Eat Well, and then Ready for School, Memories of Country Schools in North Dakota, German Russian Country. Big
Okay,
assignment. Go for it.
so the first book was Resides, and that
Okay.
was Everlasting Yeast. And
Mm-hmm.
they started I've always been curious about how people lived before electricity. So I had in the back of my mind always the intention to interview my aunts and uncles and find out about this. Well, one day I happened upon a conference where a group of Germans from Russia were forming the Tri-County Tourism Alliance. And I joined that group and talked with Carmen Rathwald from Napoleon about doing a cookbook. And she's like, yeah, we got to do a cookbook. I said, but I don't want this to be a cookbook. I want this to be the food culture Germans from Russia.
Mm.
So we decided, or they gave me permission to go ahead and move forward with this project. So I wrote a small grant to the State Historical Society, and they paid for some of the equipment and some of my travel expenses to go down and interview people from the generations above me about things like what did they garden? What did they grow in their fields? How did they preserve food? How did they preserve meat? What was going on butchering day? And then we invited people to send us recipes. And it was kind of like the whole thing was kind of like a miracle. Like I always say that it was God's gift, my gift to the German people, but
Yeah.
God gave this to me as a project because I
Mhm.
spent a month pacing the house and saying to myself things like, why would anybody want to read another cookbook? Why does anybody care about this? Why am I doing this? And in the end, what I had done was I had been blogging all along about the women I met and the people I interviewed, shared some recipes. We didn't write all the recipes out. We actually photocopied the actual recipe cards and put them in the book. And this was probably the first time that a lot of people that I know had ever like done that, preserved the actual recipe card.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did the book. And I am a graphic artist and I love books. I love the way they smell, love the way they feel. And so I did all of the design work and then went to the printers and picked out the paper, did the cover design and all that because I wanted this to be absolutely gorgeous. However, when we did the pricing, it ended up being a $75 book. Now we did offer it for 55 pre-sale or pre-printing, and we gathered enough money together to actually pay for the printing. So anything after that was profit for the Tri-County Tourism Alliance.
Mm.
And the response was overwhelming to me. Like I had people calling me up and they were saying things like, I thought this was just going to be a cookbook, but it's not. I can hear my grandmother's voice in your writing.
Oh.
And then one gal told me she
Oh.
actually stroked the pages because it was such a beautiful book.
Oh, wow.
So it was very successful. We actually printed 2,000, sold those, and printed a second printing of that book. So I was pumped, I was like, well, let's move on here. And
So, do you have one of those books you can show us?
I do, but I'm going to have to get it out from under my computer.
Okay.
I actually dug them out.
All right. Good for you.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 12 by 12 book.
Wow.
This is the title. It looks backwards to me, but it's Eviger Sots, which means everlasting yeast. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what to do for that title.
Yeah.
And then it came to me that my generation and my kids and my grandkids are actually, as they practice German cuisine and German traditions, are the everlasting yeast that's keeping this culture alive. So that's where that came from. And then there's a picture on here. I have to tell you this story. There's a picture in the book and many more of this woman here.
Yes.
She is Mrs. Oliver Bettenhausen. And I got this photograph because Tom Eastern from NDSU contacted me one day and he said, do you know any Bettenhausers? And I'm like, no, but I know some Bettenhausens. And my aunt was one. And he goes, look at these pictures I found at the Library of Congress. They had come into the state of North Dakota. They sent a photographer here in the 1940s. And I have pictures of her feeding corn cobs into an old stove. And I have pictures of her. She had Oliver Bettenhausen was married, had one kid, I believe. His wife died, so he married her sister and had 15 more. So there are 16 kids in that family. And they've got pictures of, the piles of manure bricks that they made and people voting and young women making beds and a root cellar. And as you know, this was work for these people. They weren't out there with their cell phones photographing every stinking little thing they did because they would have, my grandmother would have, ach du lieber, what do you think you're doing? This is not important. This is work. This is, go away. So it was a photograph that actually inspired the second book that I did, which was Women Behind the Plow.
Oh, okay.
And this was one of those treasured photographs that we found that depicted a woman on the plow. But that's not the photo that got me going on this. The photo was, I was going through some old Caseman photos and I picked one up and turned it around, and naturally on the back of it, it said Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Jingleheimer Schmidt or something like that.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, these women were not given credit for all the work they did.
Nope.
They didn't even get first names. They were always Mrs. somebody or other, And so I thought they deserved a little attention. So that's when I did the Women Behind the Plow. And actually,
I love that
the
title.
The subtitle behind that is Bier macht das Leben süß. That's work makes life sweet in a very sad way. But that was kind of the impetus for that particular book, which from that we did a photo exhibit that actually hung at the Heritage Center for a while, of the women's portraits, each woman's portrait, a little synopsis of their stories, and then a couple black and whites on some beautiful mirror prints. And that traveled around the state. And then I would go and do speaking engagements about my experiences with these lovely women. And they were lovely and hospitable beyond belief. Although many of them would say, well, I don't have anything to tell you. I don't have anything to say, and don't take my picture. But I managed to get around that because I have mad interview skills.
All right.
We even doing this, having this responsibility of hosting a 1950s fun chat, we hear those same comments. I don't have a story. Why are you asking me? But everyone has a wonderful story, which is so interesting to another person.
Well,
right, and you know what The Africans say that when somebody dies, a whole library is burnt up.
Oh, sure. I've heard that.
Because nobody records what they did growing up or what their thoughts were.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important work what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Next project. How does that segue into further projects?
Well, one of the things we did, because $75 is a lot of money for a German, but they pay it, is that we took the recipes from Eva Gersatz and created just a small cookbook with a couple of personal essays that I wrote in there, and then the recipes. So, because nobody wanted to take this book into the kitchen, because as you know, I can find my mother's favorite recipes by the coffee stains and the chocolate smeared on the recipe card. Yeah. That way I knew it was really a good recipe because she used it a lot. So, and so that one became a companion piece for Prairie Public Radio, who did Goodis Essen as a documentary, and that featured a lot of the women I interviewed and myself, because I went to Napoleon High School and we made Kuchen and bread and sauerkraut with the kids down there as part of this documentary. So that was really a fun experience for me.
How do you think? Okay, you planted the seed, kids in the school. Do you think any of those students will continue with that? And
hey, those kids from Napoleon were aces. Like, I know for sure that they're making sauerkraut because they were really good and they listened well and they were familiar. And so it was the right audience for the documentary.
Well, I believe one of the documentaries I've watched on Prairie Public related to the Germans in Russia had to do with, and I don't know what, they were two 4-H leaders, and they had their 4-Hers at this one lady's house, and they were making Fleischkäse.
No, I think they weren't they making
how about one was making strudel where they stretched it?
Oh, I wonder if that was in the first documentary or in the one that I was in, because I remember Marge Horner does that. She brings the kids in from the high school and she does cooking with them. So, and I know I taught my kids how to cook. In fact, their friends are like, this isn't macaroni and cheese. And we're like, yeah, this is macaroni and cheese. The stuff in the box is not. Sorry.
It's interesting that we have now learned that many people pronounce Nefla with the silent K. We grew up learning it as Knifla, and I think that's so interesting.
Oh, that's wrong.
Evidently. But anyway, I still make Knifla at our house.
Yeah, Knifla soup.
One of the things
where do you suppose that came from? Why is it?
Well, okay, so one of the things that we did in the small cookbook was we put as many spellings as we could for these words, because they didn't know how to make the German word into English, so they just did what they did phonetically. So I think that's part of it. Are you Catholics or Protestants? That might have something to do with it.
Lutheran.
So I have no explanation except that there's a lot of things like I have cousins. I have a couple double cousins, and we do things differently because apparently their mother did things differently than my mother did for some reason, and I'm not sure where the influences came in, but not all those women that left the houses back then at 18 or 19 to get married brought those cooking skills with them. Some of them had to learn them, and some of those stories are hilarious about ruining the bread dough or killing the yeast, and their husbands would come home expecting food, and they'd have the bread dough hiding in the wood pile so they wouldn't know they screwed it up, and then the geese would eat it and they'd get sick, or they'd eat rotten fruit and they'd get drunk and pass out, and they thought they'd lose their whole flock, and here they were just like passed out. It was a lot of fun, Mike. I had so much fun.
I'm reading a book now, and it's about this lady growing up in the early 1900s, growing up in New Mexico and Arizona. Jeepers creepers. These people would eat, she saw people eat meat that was filled with maggots.
Oh,
And she'd
Oh,
ask about that. And the lady said, well, that's just more meat.
extra protein. I've heard that before.
yeah, no.
Lordy, lordy.
But they did like when it came to things like canning, I taught a lot of canning classes and I like pressure canning. I think
Mm,
pressure canning is a lot of fun, even though
paper.
even my aunts and my mom, they're like, you're gonna blow yourself up. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, there's a proper way to do this. But they never, the extension, one of the extension people I know is just like, oh my gosh, you can't can anything because it has to be acid and this and that. And, they can peas and beans and stuff out of the garden, but they boiled the crap out of them. So,
Oh,
um,
no nutrients left.
nobody had botulism in that era. I think the
No.
last documented case of anybody dying from canned food was like in the 1930s.
Mm,
So it's been a long time. And I remember going to Grandma Meininger's house and we would have the same meal at Easter time. There was always Jello, there was
uh-huh.
sausage, there were homemade pickles, there were honey cookies with white frosting and little sprinkles on. Then we would have fruit, and then like oranges or whatever was in season that early in the year. And then as we're leaving one time, my dad stopped in the hallway and turned around and said to my mom, how old do you think that canned sausage was? And my mom's like, 7 years. And we're like, what? But things were just, we were healthier back then. And so
Mhm.
they weren't stupid about eating things that were moldy or anything, but we ate a
Mhm.
lot of things that the kids nowadays would just run
Yeah.
the other direction.
I'm curious to know why the title Women Behind the Plow. Is it
Okay,
because, oh, go ahead.
that's because I don't think that women, okay, here's an example of when I worked at Farms, which was the name of the nonprofit, and we had a focus group one time with the women from around Medina, and there was a widowed woman in there who said that, and she wasn't as old as my mom, but she said that when her husband died, the neighbor man went to the FSA office and or claimed her acres, said this is what she's going to grow. Because apparently they didn't think she was wise enough to do it herself. And
Oh,
that was part of this, was that, everybody talked about the men. The men did this, the men owned the land, the men inherited the land. And the women, I was the oldest living sibling when my parents were getting ready to go into the nursing home. And my youngest brother was the executor of the estate because God forbid a woman could not handle something like that.
Right.
I felt discriminated against by my own father sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because
oh,
of that attitude towards women. So I thought people needed to know that they worked like
Mm-hmm.
crazy people, and my grandmother on the Caseman side of the family, in between my dad and his sister, or maybe it was in between my dad and his brother, she was pregnant and she was made to work on the farm, and she was hit by a sow
Ugh.
in the when she was moving the pigs
Yeah.
and lost that child, and she had the baby. My aunt told me this, so I don't know any of the details except that they wrapped it in a black shroud and my grandmother went back to work. And when nightfall came, they went out and buried that child. They didn't give it a name. We have no idea where it is. We went looking for it one time. We went to all the cemeteries in McIntosh County and recorded where my relatives were all buried,
Mm-hmm.
and never ever found any kind of indication of where that child is. And that kind of
Mm-hmm.
breaks my heart
Yeah.
that women were treated like this. So that was part of this book.
do you
Mm-hmm.
suppose that
But
the child was
sorry.
buried on the farm, on their farm?
Mm-hmm.
Do you suppose that child was buried on their farm?
Yes, because one of the cemeteries that we went to is still on
Oh,
the original
oh,
farm, but it is fenced off. And then my grandfather had a sister that was 6 years old, and they were out haying, and there was a fire in the field, and her dress caught fire, and it actually melted the buttons to her skin. And so that young lady was buried out there in a very special little corner of the cemetery. And then the rest of the relatives around there. So I love old cemeteries. There's so many stories.
Yeah. But yet women could apply for a homestead if they could prove up.
Single women or married women?
Well, married, no. Maybe if they had a son, a male in the family.
Right. There had to be a male involved. And I heard a story once where I think they had to be 16 years of age for some documentation. And so the mother wrote the word, or wrote 16 on a piece of paper and put it in this kid's shoe. So when they asked if you were over the age of 16, he said yes, because he was standing on 16 in his shoe.
Very smart. Yes, I'm over 16.
So women were clever.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about that. I don't know of any instances that I ran into when I was interviewing of any. But I did hear stories like when they put them on the ships over there and the ship was full, they put the gate down. And if one of their children was on the other side of the gate, they were out of luck. So there was a family or two that actually adopted children from other families rather than leaving them behind.
Wow.
So
did those children ever get reconnected with their birth family?
I think the one that I know about that was probably the most closely related to my family actually did find her parents.
Oh, wowee.
But I mean, that was those people, and they never complained about it. My grandparents never ever once brought up anything that happened in the old country. And they were born here, but my great grandparents came over, and none of those stories really ever came out. And I am remiss that I didn't pick up on this history thing sooner than later, so I could have maybe sat down and collected some more stories from that generation.
Yes. And of course, their recording was out of the question, even a cassette or a reel-to-reel.
Although I do have a recording of my dad's grandmother shilling. The thing is that it's very scratchy and it's very hard to translate her German into English. I had thought about trying to find a fiber person that could translate for me. Actually, I just recently came across that. I have like 3, when I moved, which I did just recently, I have 3 buckets of history that needs to be organized because I need to find somebody to pass that down. There are documents in there like my grandfather or great-grandfather was interviewed by the State Historical Society people in the 40s or whenever, and typical German guy, his answers are mostly yes or no, but at least it's some documentation. And then one of my aunts wrote I have a handwritten history of the family, whatever she could remember, and then all these old photographs that I've been, I kind of become the historic magnet, and people will send me these things when they're cleaning out their closet. So
Did the Germans from Russia Library help you at all?
You know what? I've never gone over there, and I've never connected with very many of those people. Oh, Norbert Miller. Mayor. There we go. He's actually he's actually from Gackle, so he and I have had some connections about stuff like that. So but they've never I don't know, I'm sure that they have books like, I did these, like this is the last Meitinger. This is the Meitinger family.
Okay. Wow.
And so at this time in 2015, there were almost 50 grandchildren, and of those, they mostly all were married and had 3 to 5 kids apiece. And so there were a lot of great grandchildren. And so we at least have this from our side of the family, 3 copies, like 3 different eras
Oh,
of family.
When you get together like that for reunions with that many generations, what's it like?
Oh my God. When my mom and her sisters and sister-in-laws are together, it's like chickens in a hen house. It is like delightful to listen to them.
yay.
And you know how women are. We talk over the top of each other, but we're still tracking every single thing we hear. And so that's a whole lot of fun. And then of
Oh,
course I had so many cousins that, you know, you only really got to know the ones that were close in age to you, except now that I've turned 70, all of a sudden we're all, you know, we're reconnecting in the most amazing ways. Like a lot of them came to my rescue when I had to move. And I have a cousin in town that will drive me down to Wishick for sauerkraut days. In fact, my aunt Erna will be 98 years old on Monday or Tuesday, Monday, I think. So we're going to get together with one of her kids from California. We're going to meet in Jamestown and have lunch. So I'm looking forward to that. So we are having fun. And the last time I checked on ancestry.com, I was up to 16,000 DNA matches.
Whew.
So we're everywhere.
You're everywhere. Okay.
I love it. Sue, this has been just delightful.
Delightful.
We are at the end
We
of
could go on and on. However,
I know, right? Didn't they tell you I talk like a Meitinger? We never run out of words.
Well, we are so grateful that you said yes to our invitation to join us on a 1950s Fun Chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
yes, thank you. And
Thank you
don't
for
go
having
away.
me. I appreciate the opportunity. I really, really do.
You're welcome. And you save this little clip, and Janine will tell you about that later on and pass it on.
Yeah, to all those family members.
Oh yeah, I do a weekly blog post and then some additional blog posts. And so I thought I could use this for one of my,
Exactly.
you know, a link with one of my blog posts to get it out there so people can actually read it and become familiar with your work. So
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, viewers, we do thank you for joining us, and don't forget, we come again next week. Tell your friends and even your relatives about this 1950s Fun Chat. So till next time, toodaloo.
Bye-bye.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.